When Lynn Forrester called you and said, there's this guy I want you to meet, his name is Jeffrey Epstein, I should have said no.
That's Alan Dershowitz, one of America's most famous lawyers, Harvard professor, has represented O.J. Simpson, President Clinton, President Trump.
It's as close to McCarthyism, which I experienced as a college student. Guilt by association, guilt by accusation, blaming the lawyers for defending people.
But there's one client that he wishes he had never met.
He was not a suicidal person, but maybe he knew that the evidence against him was much greater than what was in the press.
Hey guys, it's Carlos Watson. I'm back with my new podcast. One of my very first guests, Professor Alan Dershowitz. We're in his apartment, same building, by the way, that Marilyn Monroe used to live in, but we're not talking about her today. We're talking about President Trump and more.
He is back. Emmy Award-winning journalist. He's interviewed presidents, rebels, icons, thinkers. He is Carlos Watson.
Before Alan Dershowitz defended presidents and fought the most controversial cases in American law, he was actually a kid from Brooklyn who almost didn't make it.
My mother took me to the department that advises parents about what kids should be when they grow up. My mother said he wants to be a lawyer, and the woman said, don't you understand, Mrs. Dershowitz, that to be a lawyer, you have to go to college, and your son just isn't college material. They said I could be an insurance salesman because I was verbal, or I could be an advertising agent, or I could be a funeral director.
So how did you go from near the bottom of your class in high school to top of your class at Yale Law School in 5 years?
I was punished for my talents in high school and rewarded for them both in college and in law school. The same arguments that got me C's in high school got me A's in college. And so being argumentative helped me. I went to a great college, Brooklyn College. Everybody in my class was either an immigrant or the child of an immigrant or the grandchild of an immigrant. There were no white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Everybody was Jewish, Italian, Irish, Black, Latino. Everybody had a grandparent or a parent who came from a different country, and the kids worked very, very hard. They were ambitious. They all wanted to break out of their parents' generation. My mother would run into the principal of my high school all the time. And once she said, so now, are you sorry about what you did to my son? See what he's done? He's a professor at Harvard. And the principal, who's a rabbi, said, is he an Orthodox Jew? And my mother said, not so much. He said, see, we were right.
They judge him on religion, not talent, not even potential, but on religion. Who's someone you admire? Who's the hero?
My dad.
Why do you say your dad?
Because maybe it's the fact that I've always been in his life, but I've seen him struggle, I've seen him succeed, and through that I'm just truly inspired by someone like him.
And did you always find yourself inspired by him, or did it happen as you got older?
I think I've always been inspired by him, but I understood more and more his efforts as time went on.
Someone who I admire is definitely my mother. She's basically raised me her whole life, and she's always been my hero.
That's Jason. We met him on the streets of San Jose, and like Dershowitz, he believes that the most important person in his life believed in him when almost no one else would. Alan Dershowitz has backed underdogs for a lot of his career, and for him that's always included Israel, but lately that position has become incredibly controversial.
When I was 10 years old, Israel was established. We collected money for the Haganah, the Israel Defense Forces, who was surrounded by Arab enemies, sworn to their destruction. It was right after the Holocaust. I remember 1948, just 3 years after the Holocaust, when Israel was established, we had all chipped in and bought a Jeep for the Israeli army, and it was in front of the school, and we all got in it, and then it got on a boat and went and fought in Israel. I went to a camp in 1948, Camp Mossad, a Hebrew-speaking Zionist camp, where the counselor of my division was Noam Chomsky, who ultimately became very anti-Israel, but at the time was a Zionist member of what's called HaShomer HaTzair, the kind of very left-wing, almost neo-communist group, but supportive of Israel. Today, those groups are not supportive of Israel, but I never wavered. I always thought that the establishment of Israel after the Holocaust was an amazing feat. The only time in history an indigenous group went back to its land, recreated its language, recreated its culture, and thrived. And Israel is the epitome of meritocratic success.
What do you say to those who say that the land was taken from the Arabs?
Well, the Jews had the land way before the Arabs. Remember, Islam doesn't start until 7 centuries after the Jews are expelled. The Jews are there for thousands of years, and then they're expelled by Christians and then ultimately by Arabs. And there's always been a Jewish population. In 1830, they did a demographic survey of Jerusalem, and they found out that the plurality of people who live in Jerusalem were Jews, second were Christian, third were Muslims. And Tel Aviv was a Jewish city. Haifa was always partly Jewish. Many of the other cities were Jewish. And so there's always been a Jewish presence.
Have you heard Ta-Nehisi Coates' reflections on
yeah.
his visit? What do you think when you hear that?
Total ignorance. He has no idea of what the history is. He has no recognition of the Jewish presence in the Middle East. He's just buying, the propaganda that's being given by the other side. And I expect more of him because he's a very smart guy. And he has no excuse not to know the history, not to go back and understand that after the Holocaust, what are you going to do with the remnants of the 6 million Jews that were murdered with the help of Palestinian leaders? Remember that Husseini was the head of the Palestinians. He came to Berlin and spent the war years with Hitler, was a Hitler ally, and he wanted to build death camps in Hebron, in Israel, to kill Jews. And he was the villain. He was called a war criminal after the war, but Palestinians had his picture still hung in their homes.
Strong words, but Dershowitz went further.
And Israel, of course, the Arab population of Israel, they serve on the Supreme Court, they serve in the Knesset, they are dominant in the medical profession. There is no apartheid in Israel. I know apartheid. I worked against it. I was one of Nelson Mandela's lawyers in an effort to try to get him out when he was in prison. I worked with Erwin Kotler. And so I know apartheid when I see it. When you go to Israel and you see that it's dominantly brown and black, not a white country. The Sephardic Jews who are brown, the black Jews of Ethiopia, and then there are, of course, the white Jews of Europe. In Haifa, Jews and Arabs work together. If you go to the great hospitals in Haifa, you'll see there are more Arab doctors and nurses than there are Jewish doctors and nurses. It bears no relation to apartheid. It's a blood libel to call Israel apartheid. It is the most integrated country in all the Middle East. You want to go to an apartheid country? Go to Saudi Arabia. You want to go to an apartheid country? Go to Jordan. A Jew is not allowed to own land in Jordan. There are no Jewish citizens of Jordan. You want to see apartheid countries? Go to Egypt. Go to every single Arab country and you'll see apartheid. Go to Israel and you'll see the most racially, ethnically mixed country anywhere in the Middle East.
Do you think Trump's going to serve a third term?
Maybe, maybe not. He's getting up there and he's like in age, so I don't know.
Tiana?
Time will tell, and patience is a virtue, so who knows what'll happen.
You know what, I also have that belief. I think anything could happen, and I think especially the last few years, so many unpredictable things have happened, and we really just can't tell for sure.
Unpredictability, it's probably the theme of our time, and in many ways it's what happened to Alan Dershowitz when he took on his most controversial client.
When Lynn Forrester called you and said, there's this guy I want you to meet, his name is Jeffrey Epstein, he's absolutely brilliant, he gives money to Harvard, he'd like to come over and meet you, I should have said no.
Do you regret representing him?
I regret meeting him. I wish I had never had any contact with him, but once I met him, I don't turn down cases based on their popularity. Of course, when he asked me to represent him, nobody knew he had done anything wrong. We thought, remember what he pleaded guilty to with two minor felonies. One, soliciting sex from a 19-year-old and soliciting sex from a 17-and-a-half-year-old. Serious crimes, but nothing like what ultimately emerged. And so it were those two cases that I defended him on.
So you do think what's ultimately emerged, if you had known all of that, you think you would have not have represented him?
No, I would have represented him, but I would have done it differently. I don't turn down cases based on how serious the alleged crimes are.
Is that where you've gotten your greatest criticism? Because you've represented a wide range of people.
Oh, that's
over
not.
the
It's
years.
not even close. Not even close. I mean, I represented O.J. Simpson. I represented Klaus von Bülow. So many people, but it's only been Epstein that has gotten me the kind of
And why do you think
criticism.
that is?
He's become a phenomenon. He's one of the most famous people of modern times. Infamous, obviously. But he's, helped bring down governments, got a Prince of England to be deprinced, is getting Bill Clinton much criticized, Donald Trump criticized, me criticized, anybody who knew him.
Like, as a person, if he were sitting here with you and me
You'd
right
be
now-
charmed. You'd be charmed. He was bright and funny and knew everybody and was a name dropper. It's not surprising to me that people like to be with him. He hid all of his vices.
There's something that everyone has wanted to know about. In fact, they've become conspiracy theories over the last couple of years. So I've heard well-connected people tell me with a fair degree of certainty that they believed he was involved in intelligence.
He was not.
And I've heard you say the opposite.
Well, I can tell you this. He was not involved in Israeli intelligence. How do I know that? Because I was a lawyer for the Mossad. I represented 5 of their agents when they were captured in Cyprus. I've had a very good relationship with the heads of the Mossad for several years, and there's no way they would have ever had anything to do with somebody like Jeffrey Epstein. If he had been involved in intelligence, the first person he would have told that would be me, because I would have gotten him an even better deal. And I asked him, is there anything you can tell me, anything you can give me, any information you can give me about famous people? And I mentioned among the famous people, I mentioned presidents of the United States or anything involving intelligence. I want to have everything available to me to make the pitch to get you a better deal. And he gave me some information about Wexner and about others, but not at all about anything relating to intelligence.
And then there's the question that everyone wants answered. Do you think he committed suicide?
I don't know. I can tell you this. He was not a suicidal person, and he committed suicide allegedly during a weekend when on Monday or Tuesday he might have had a chance to get out on bail. And, but maybe he knew that the evidence against him was much greater than what was in the press, and maybe he knew he had no chance of ever getting out again. He wouldn't want to spend the rest of his life in a rat-infested jail. So it's possible, and I don't know what the alternative is. I can't imagine anybody being able to break through prison security to get to him, but I do think that if he did commit suicide, he did it with the help of people in the prison system. They turned their back and gave him the opportunity to kill himself if he killed himself.
Alan Dershowitz has defended some of the most hated people in America, but there's something more hated even than the people. It's the system itself. I obviously, unfortunately, got to know the legal system really well over the last couple of years. One of the things that really struck me was, of the 72,000 people who were prosecuted every year, indicted, 71,710 are convicted. Less than 0.5% of people are acquitted, which is a worse rate than China or Russia.
There are 2 possible interpretations. People say to me all the time, oh, your clients are guilty. And I say, thank God for that. Would anybody want to live in a system where most clients of a good criminal defense lawyer are innocent? That's Iran, that's China, that's Russia, that's Cuba. It's not the United States. So one possible good interpretation is that the conviction rate is so high because the people who prosecute are very careful. I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's a mixture. Some offices are very good. There are some offices that really work hard to make sure, and some district attorneys, that only the guilty are prosecuted. That's rare. I think most prosecutors are opportunistic. They want to make their careers. They want to move from the prosecutor's office to the big firms and make a lot of money. And so they look for high-profile cases. They look for easy cases. The courts consist primarily of former prosecutors, both the trial judges and the Court of Appeals judges. And of course, they're sympathetic to the prosecutors. There is something askew of the system, and that's why so many people plead guilty, because of two things. One, they know they're going to be convicted, and B, if they do get convicted, they're going to get harsher penalties. It's called the trial penalty. If you go to trial and lose, you get double, triple, quadruple what you would have gotten if you had pleaded. And so there's an extortionate element in the system that pushes you toward pleading guilty, whether you're guilty or innocent or somewhere in between. There is a lot of black on black crime. There are a lot of black victims of black perpetrators. And that's something that the African American community has not dealt with satisfactorily. I think it's very important that black leaders focus on that. That doesn't excuse the fact that disproportionately the number of innocent people who are prosecuted are brown and black. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I go to prison a lot to visit clients. Today you go to prison and it's like going to a black community. Everybody you see in the prison is black or brown, and it's terrible.
What's the scariest moment you've ever had in your life?
Scariest moment? My parents getting older,
Okay.
Maybe I just would like to spend a little bit more time with them as they're getting older, I would just like to, take the time to really tell my parents I love them, and, tomorrow's never promised.
Fear takes many forms. For Jason, it's the fear of losing his parents. But for many Americans, the most serious fear is the fear of dealing with a corrupt justice system. While Alan Dershowitz has represented a variety of American presidents, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, do not assume he's a supporter. Did you vote for him?
Here's my deal. I voted against him twice. In 2016, I voted for Hillary Clinton. 2020, I voted for Biden. 2024, my wife will not allow me to tell anybody who I voted for. She's the only human being other than me who knows. And Donald Trump has asked me the same question, and I've refused to tell him.
But he did write a book exploring whether President Trump could serve a third term.
The framers of the 22nd Amendment left that open because they said he couldn't be elected to a third term, but he could serve a third term possibly if he became the president in a manner other than by election. There's one manipulation that's possible. He runs for president. 22nd Amendment doesn't say you can't run, it just says you can't be elected. He runs and he wins. But then he tells his electors not to vote for him, to abstain. And so there's not enough electoral votes to get him to be elected president. Then it goes to the House of Representatives, where the House of Representatives designates him to be president. It's not going to happen.
Wow.
It's just too cute. I think he said, I think it's his term, he said it's too cute, and I agree with him.
Time will tell, and patience is a virtue, so who knows what'll happen.
I got my boy Barack Obama on that one.
Oh, you think Obama could come and take him? That's actually an interesting question. If both of them tried to run for a third term, who do you think would take it?
Obama all day.
You think Obama would eat him up?
For sure. Eat him up. It wouldn't even be close.
The future is unpredictable, but one thing is certain, battles aren't over. In his late 80s, Alan Dershowitz has seen it all. He's represented presidents and murderers, won cases no one thought he could, but also found himself in tough spots that he never thought he'd be stuck in. Do you think you're more formidable today than you were 20 years ago?
It depends on what role. For giving advice, I'm much more formidable today than I was 20 years ago. For winning a debate, maybe 5%, but I'm still pretty good.
When I asked Alan Dershowitz about his greatest success, his answer really surprised me.
My biggest success is very simple. She's in the next room. It's my wife, Carolyn, managing to get her to marry me, which I'll never understand why she did. She had so many other options, but she picked me.
Why do you think she did?
If I charmed her. No. I was provocative. I was always interesting. I think my tombstone will say, never boring.
That's good. Were you a better husband this time? Were you a different husband because you were older, because you'd had experience?
You're going to have to ask my wife whether I'm a good husband. Okay. I'm a devoted husband. Okay. I'll do anything for my wife, but whether I'm a good husband or not, I created a lot of problems for her. My representation of Trump lost friends, and my representation of Epstein. I'm not the easiest person. Oh, let me put it this way. Criminal defense lawyers like me are not the easiest people to be married to.
Are you lucky?
No, I lost my son at age 64, who had suffered from a brain tumor when he was 10. That's not good luck. I miss him every single day. We spoke every day. Other than my wife, he was the closest person to me in the world.
And Alan, full disclosure, you've obviously represented me, which I appreciate. What made you decide to do that?
You were subject to a terrible injustice, and I'm hoping to see justice done, and I'm hoping to reverse the statistics of 96 point or 99 point and vindicate an innocent man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. That's Alan Dershowitz, Harvard professor, legal legend, and yes, Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer. You may not agree with everything he said, but you got to give him this. Alan Dershowitz has spent the better part of 60 years fighting for something that most of us would never say a peep about. The idea that everyone deserves a defense, even the guilty. Watch my full and unedited conversation with Alan Dershowitz, only on Patreon.